went away live, Justin. That was weird.
Oh,
We're live now.
I like being live.
We're live now. Literally, it was playing for me in this window, and then it just stopped. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Let's roll that back, huh? So when I did this YouTube edit, it works a little better. Let's do this.
These two great friends agree a lot, but when they don't, then the shit gets hot. Though there's C+ in their gameplay, their commentary gets an A. So boys, girls, black, white, brown, and blue, if you're kind and you're respectful too, then we would like to welcome you to Misadventureland.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Misadventureland Game Show. I'm Bobby, and I'm here with Justin.
Hey there.
Hi, how you doing? With that time, it worked. That time
it did work.
I don't know what the bleep happened on that one. But we're here. We're here to talk about video games. If you are watching this on YouTube right now, please remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that reminder bell so you know when we're going live. We do this podcast every other Thursday, about 8 p.m. Eastern time. If you're listening in podcast form, thank you so much, and please rate us or review us on whatever service you use. We have people in chat live right now. You can be talking to these very wonderful people right now. I'm gonna say hi to them. Hey Groon, hey Megs. So yeah,
Hey, Dak.
Dak is here too. Hello, Dak. So
And Lanny.
Lanny
Yeah, we got
here.
full
Oh,
house
whoa! What a crew. We got a crew going on. All different time zones represented in our chat right now. I think almost everybody in our chat is in a different time zone. Right, actually.
It's true.
So yeah, we are here to talk about the video games. We are getting perilously close to Game of the Year. This might be our last podcast before Game of the Year. I am not 100% sure on that fact. Don't quote me on it. But it's close. If it's not, it's close. Let's just say that. How about that?
I would say maybe one more.
Maybe
and
one
then
more.
We'll be there. Maybe one more. I am, for the most part, caught up.
You are.
I'm ready to go. I'm playing things that I was not planning on playing.
That's true. It's very true. You are.
So I have more things to talk about.
We are we're all been doing a lot of catch up. Justin has played a lot of games. A lot of video games you have played, Justin.
It turns out when your family gets sick with COVID and you are stuck inside for 14 straight days,
yes,
you could accomplish a lot of things.
If those things are video games.
Yeah, mostly those things are video games.
Yes.
Nothing else. But yeah, I plowed through and beat 4 video games in 14 days. So and
That's
started 2 other ones and got many victory royales in Fortnite and played a lot of Halo. I'm ready to talk about it. Let's do it.
Yeah, you definitely have done a lot of video gamesmanship over the last few weeks. I have also done some video gamesmanship, not as much as you, but I think since we last podcasted, I have finished at least 3 video games since we spoke on this here podcast. So I'm ready to talk about those as well. I think I would like to take a look at before we go to Game of the Year. I aggregated all of our games of the years over the years working together, Justin, a few weeks ago. And I shared it, but I would like to share it with everyone out there as we go through this. And then we've been working on like our categories and filling them out. We've got a lot of categories. So we're gonna have to probably whittle some of them down. We have a lot of them, but we're thinking about doing our Game of the Year on a weekend afternoon so that the most people that possible can tune in. At least I would say part of it, because I don't know. I think it's gonna be more than one episode. Justin is my feeling with how many categories we have.
Yeah, we just do it like we used to do it. 4 hours. Let's go.
Yeah, it was more than 4 hours when we were doing it. We just
That 1 year.
We used to split up into multiple podcasts. Remember, it takes us 2.5 hours to do just the list of 10 games. So
you're not lying.
So we'll see what happens, but that's coming up soon. But before we get into that, let's do that. I'm going to just do this. I'm going to do a little overlay on top of us here. I think this will work, so people can see what we're dealing with at home, and we'll read them off for people who are listening on the podcast. But as you can see, I did a little spreadsheet action, and I categorized all of our Talking Games / monthly reset / Miss Adventureland games of the years. So we can talk about these. 2014 was the first year that Talking Games existed, and at that time we used the same format that we were currently using for Talking Comics at the time, which was we didn't do like a top 10 list. We did nominees. We did 5 nominees for every category we did, and then we did like a kind of tiered voting system, like a double elimination, a ranked choice voting system to see who would win. So you would basically go like, okay, like this is my number 1, this is my number 2, this is my number 3, number 4, number 5, and each one had like a opposite point value related to it. Just I can't see chat anymore because I'm doing this. So if anybody has any fun opinions about these lists, they can ring in.
Okay.
So 2014, I actually had to listen to the end of that year's podcast to figure out what this list was in the order of it, because we did say out loud what got the most votes. So our number 5 game that year was Diablo 3 Ultimate Evil Edition. Our number 4 was Transistor. Our number 3 was Bayonetta 2. Our number 2 was Destiny the First. And our number 1 was Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor.
Is there a change that you would make to this list?
I mean, this is a very weird list, right? Because this was decided in a very different way than we decide our stuff later on. For me, I still think I know people have like sort of relitigated Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor, right? Over the years, but I still think it was probably the best game that year that I played. Like I still think that's the case.
Other notable games not on this list: Dark Souls 2, Mario Kart 8, Alien Isolation, Far Cry 4, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare.
Yes,
we dodged a bullet there. Dragon Age Inquisition.
I think we had to. I think that was one that got close because I think Jackie played that game. But
Jackie did play that game.
It's possible Rob played that game too.
Titanfall.
Titanfall the
Banner
first.
Saga. The Titanfall numero uno. I'm looking back at games that we've played later. Wolfenstein: The New Order.
Well, you and I fought for Wolfenstein: The New Order to be on this list that year, and we just couldn't get it to break through. I remember that distinctly.
What was the Insomniac one that I really wanted on there that I'm blanking on?
Was that the year of Fuse? Oh no, that was the year of the
Sunset Overdrive.
Sunset Overdrive,
Sunset Overdrive.
Yep.
Sunset Overdrive should have been in place of Diablo 3, which is a re-release of a game from 2012.
That's true, but Karina's saying small print, so I guess he means he can't read it.
It looks good on my screen because I'm watching the YouTube video right now.
Yeah. So I mean, I can make it bigger, I suppose. And then let's see. Let's go to 125. There we go. That's better. I should make it bigger, so then I can kind of hide at least some of these. There we go. There's no reason not to do that. So I would take. I loved Diablo 3 that year. It's great. But yes, it was a re-release. It had a lot of new content in it. For me. And Wolfenstein would have been on this list for sure.
We did fight for it.
I remember fighting for it. Other than that, I can't really think of what else I would have put on there from that list you read out. The next year, we adopted the top 10 model of picking our games of the year. And I think this year I also instituted into talking comics as well. When we did this, but it was because of talking games that this ended up happening on the other side of things. So this top 10 is wild. And you can definitely tell this is the top 10 made by like 5 people, because it is full of compromises, like all the way through it. Our number 10 game that year was Bloodborne. Our number 9 game was Halo 5. Our number 8 game was Rocket League. 7 was Life is Strange. 6, Rise of the Tomb Raider. Number 5, The Witcher 3. Number 4, Fallout 4. Number 3, Metal Gear Solid 5. Number 2, Super Mario Maker. And number 1, Until Dawn. Quite
other games
for people who have been following us for a long time. This is I think the most contentious year we ever did this. Was this year, was 2015.
It really was.
Yeah.
I'll have everyone know who hasn't stuck around this long, or remind you, Bloodborne made it onto this list due to me.
It was true. It was. It was because of Justin. Well, to be fair, like I think it was on my personal top 10 that year, and I think it was like number 7 or something like that on my top. I can actually look if I really wanted to right now. But I was fighting for other things. I really, really was like pushing Metal Gear Solid 5 very hard, and so I had to pick my battles where they came. So yeah.
The Witcher 3 should have been way higher on this list.
Yeah, I mean
Fallout 4 should have been lower.
Yeah, well, we can go back to that podcast, because that Fallout 4 is where it is because of you.
Yes, I know. I really enjoyed Fallout 4. I put a ton of hours into it. Rocket League was, I don't want to say it's a flash in the pan, because it's proved to be just enduring after all these years. Bobby North put Halo 5 on this list.
Yeah.
And, well,
we kind of let him have it as like a kind of like a bone, basically. That's basically what it was. I don't know how it got to number 9. I don't know how it got above Bloodborne.
I don't remember what was in Bloodborne's place when I swapped it with Bloodborne, but I can't remember. But I was looking at some of the other games from that year. Tales from the Borderlands is maybe the best Telltale game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I remember you fighting for that one.
Dying Light was really good. Rise of the Tomb Raider, okay. We weren't counting DLC, so the Taken King did not count.
No, we didn't. We count. If this had been a couple of years later, it would have been on that list, though.
This is the Arkham Knight year. I was probably fighting very hard for Arkham Knight.
Yes,
I could not get the push.
Me and I guarantee, if you go back to listen to the 2015 Game of the Year, there are some contentious conversations between Justin and I about Arkham Knight. And Arkham Knight might have been the one that got flipped out for Bloodborne at that point. And so I can so clearly remember you saying, like, it wasn't a game for me, but it's a special game, and I just think it should be on our list. It's so funny thinking about you being the one pushing for Bloodborne at that point.
I know. I mean, going back, like looking at the rest of this list for that year, I mean, a lot of good games came out. Soma was that year.
You and I fought hard for Soma, and nobody would come with us on it. Nobody would come with us on it. That game was so good. If we were making this list now, Soma would be super high on this list for me. If it was,
it would
on the
yeah. Like I think this year, like Undertale came out. There were a lot of like small good games that came out this year, but nothing besides maybe the few that we mentioned there enough to like really move this list that much. Except for the fact that The Witcher should be near the top of this list.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I mean, I haven't played through The Witcher 3. I like a lot of the games that are on this list. I would take off Halo 5, obviously.
I would as well.
For me personally, Fallout 4 would not be on this list, but like, this is the group list. This is how group lists happen. But I would jiggle the order a little bit, but I think it's a decent list. Bloodborne would be number 1 for me now. Like, that's where it would be Bloodborne, Metal Gear Solid 5, then probably Super Mario Maker would be my top 3.
I will say, having played Until Dawn, as not playing it when this list was formed, I hold firm of the opinion it's probably the 15th best game of the year that year.
It's a top 10 game for me from that year for sure. It's a high on my top 10 from that year. But This was the year, one of the years that your little like theater game didn't pay off for you, because you held Mario Maker back in your back pocket that you liked it so much for the entire podcast. So I wasn't even fighting. I love Super Mario Maker. I wasn't even fighting for it. It was like, no one else is going to support me on this. It wasn't until the end.
It was only my second year.
It wasn't until the end.
Also, I was still learning about you. You weren't podcasting with us all the time this point. So I was I wasn't used to how you were going to fight.
Meg says it's the number one game. It's right there.
Meg, don't you have work to do?
2014 was sort of like a okay year, but kind of weak. 2015 was getting a lot better. 2016, the next 2 years are bangers of years. Our number 10 game was Inside that year. Number 9, Dishonored 2. Number 8, Uncharted 4. Number 7, Stardew Valley. Number 6, Titanfall 2. Number 5, Firewatch. Number 4, Doom. Number 3, The Witness. Number 2, Hitman. And number 1, Overwatch. That was our list that year.
I remember the video that you made for this.
Yeah.
And I still think it's the best piece of media that we've made.
It took a long time because I actually took the podcast and cut made a dialogue thing about our top a 8-minute video out of our 4-hour podcast that we did that year or whatever.
Other games not on this list: The Division.
That's fine.
Watch Dogs 2, which I really, really liked.
Good game. But it's not like
it's not like it's not an amazing game, but I really did like Watch Dogs 2.
I remember the game that the two games that hurt me from this year that weren't on this list. But keep going.
I'm gonna go down. Deus Ex.
That was the big hurt. That was, you abandoned me on that one because you wanted to get something else on the list. I think it was Dishonored 2.
I wanted Dishonored 2 on the list. And you know what? History has proved me right.
You're not wrong. You aren't wrong about it. You're not wrong about it. I'm not saying you were wrong about it, but it still hurt me. It still hurt me.
Dark Souls 3 was one of the other games that could have shown up here if we had played enough of it.
Yeah.
Other than that, this list I think is very good.
You know what's not on this list?
Finally got around.
Super Hot.
Super Hot's not on this list.
I had to
Super
fight.
Hot wouldn't make this list anyway.
So Megs was saying that Inside at number 10 was a travesty. Megs, I had to fight and claw to get Inside on this list. To me, history is borne out that Inside should be way higher on this list than it is right now. But I had to fight and claw. I had to give up Super Hot to get Inside on the list.
Titanfall 2, maybe the best first-person shooter ever, is at number 6. Titanfall 2 should have been higher. I agree that Inside should have been higher. We could have swapped Inside and Firewatch.
Oh, get out of here. That's the game you pick?
Yes, that's the game I pick.
Someone I know people while watching this or listening to this are wondering why Stardew Valley was at number 7. It was because Justin hated it.
I never played it.
I know, but you
never got around to playing Stardew Valley.
I know, but you were very much against it. Let's just say.
No, I was not against playing Stardew Valley. I just kept saying it was not my type of game. But I repeatedly said I'm interested in playing it, but that was a busy year. It was one of those ones I just never had time to get to. I eventually did play at least a dozen hours of Stardew Valley in the past 12 months.
You were drunk during all of them, though.
I was.
What was I going to say? That Stardew Valley being on there is a big function. This was Kelsey's first year doing with us. One of her 2 years doing this with us. And Kelsey was the champion of Stardew Valley. I really liked it, but it was Kelsey who made sure it got on this list. A
little inside baseball for this, though. Stardew Valley, it did not get talked about at all that day.
Not really.
It took the place of Rise of the Tomb Raider the year before, where it was that seems like a good spot for it, and we never talked about it. And then when Bobby was cutting together that video that I had mentioned, he had to actually go back to an older podcast and find Kelsey talking about Stardew Valley.
Yeah. That's exactly true. Yeah, Rise of the Tomb Raider. There's usually like one game that doesn't get talked about that ends up just getting like, because everyone just kind of like agrees about it, I guess, but we never talk about it. And I'm also seeing like a like kind of like a theme here between 2015, 2016, and 2017. We're about to talk. They're all like Bobby. Number 3 is always a Bobby game. For those years. Like The Witness is number 3 by sheer force of my will, basically. But yeah, so that was a very good, really good year. That was a really, really good year, really good discussion. It was a good one. 2017 is maybe the best year of video games that's ever happened. And there's stuff not on this list that could absolutely be in a top 10 and high. Number 10 was Horizon Zero Dawn. Number 9 was Nier Automata. And number 8 was Dream Daddy. A dad dating simulator. Number 7 was What Remains of Edith Finch. Number 6 is Metroid Samus Returns. Number 5, Night in the Woods. Number 4, Cuphead. Number 3, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Number 2, Super Mario Odyssey. And number 1, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
I'm going to give you some games that were not on this list.
I remember a few of them. I remember this year very... Yeah.
Uncharted The Lost Legacy.
I wanted that to be on the list.
I wanted that to be there. Splatoon 2.
Yeah.
Neo. ARMS.
Well, ARMS was never making it.
ARMS was never making it. It did win Best Looking, I think, that year, though. Gregoria, which is now on Game Pass. I'm going down. This is a long... Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which is terrific.
It was a good year for Nintendo.
Metroid Samus Returns.
That's on this list.
Sonic Mania. Oh, Metroid Samus. Oh, it is on there.
Number
That's
6.
Right. Little Nightmares was this year. Emily's Away 2 was this year.
Yeah, I remember.
Hellblade was this year. Night of the
Yep.
Woods made it.
Yeah.
Pyre, which you and me actually agreed on.
It's the only one of their games I actually noped out on. I never finished Pyre.
I did. Here we go. Assassin's Creed Origins, which was my downfall. Destiny 2.
Destiny 2, yeah. Your liking of Assassin's Creed Origins, how much you did is even though oddly it's not on this list, is the reason why I was able to get Horizon Zero Dawn just at number 10 and not have it be higher on the list.
Yeah. Wolfenstein 2 didn't make this list.
It didn't make this list, no.
Holy shit.
Yeah, no, it didn't make this list. Remember, it was me, you, Kelsey, and Matt, and Hugh. So there was a lot of different opinions.
There's a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
Prey didn't make this list. Persona 5 didn't make this list. Resident Evil 7 didn't make this list.
Yeah, I tried on Resident Evil 7 a big time, but no one would go. You guys wouldn't go with me on that one.
Had I played it yet? I hadn't played it yet.
No, you had not played it yet. The main thing I remember about this Game of the Year recording is when we were doing Best Music, and Hugh, the first moment out, goes, "Wait, I think we can cut Nier from this category, right?"
Oh my god!
And all being like, "Hugh, this is gonna win. It's gonna win this category."
Hugh, I know you're listening to this. I have appreciated your friendship for the decade that we've been friends. I honestly thought about cutting you out of my life forever in that moment. It's like the worst thing.
Yeah.
The worst thing.
Yeah, 2017 was a great year.
It was a fantastic year for games.
It was like
Persona 5. I would have fought for Persona 5 to be on this list if I had played it at the time.
Yeah. I mean, at the time, I think I had played like 20 hours of it, and I was like, I couldn't. I was like, it was one of those situations where I was like, I really like this game, but I can't fight for it over other games, so I just haven't beaten it. You know what? 2016 was also year of Final Fantasy 15.
Yes,
right?
It was.
Yes,
I meant to say that. I mean, Jesus Christ, what a freaking year! Like Persona 5, Resident Evil 7, Prey, Wolfenstein, Destiny 2.
Yep.
Assassin's Creed Origins. Those are all games that didn't make the top 10.
Yep. Also, in games that did make the top 10 has Nier Automata, Night in the Woods, Cuphead, PUBG, Super Mario Odyssey, and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Or like, amazing. It was an amazing year. It's been the best years ever, right? It's 100% one of the best years ever.
It could be the best year ever.
Yes. So 2018 is kind of a weird year because 2018 was we did a podcast, you and I, but it wasn't until like April of 2019 that we did it. We did it. It was our first episode of Monthly Reset ever. And we did basically we didn't even like really rank them in the episode. So I had to kind of listen to the episode and kind of just sort of like kind of guess where we would have put stuff. Of the ones because I think you and I both talked about our 5 favorite games that year or something like that. And I took like the 10 that were different or whatever of the games we talked about. It might have been more than 5 of the game, and I kind of just ordered them here. Other than like, because I think at the time, so I'll read them. Tetris Effect, number 10. Into the Breach, number 9. Hitman 2, number 8. Celeste, number 7. Red Dead Redemption, number 6. Call of Duty Black Ops 4, number 5. Marvel's Spider-Man, number 4. Dead Cells, number 3. God of War, number 2. And Return of the Obra Dinn, number 1. Like I said, we didn't officially rank this list, but listening to our discussion, this kind of felt right to me. Of the games that we were talking about in the show.
Yeah.
This was like the list we had that we were going over. Another very good year. Not as good, obviously, as the year before, or probably the year before that, but still very good. And as one of the Return of the Obra Dinn is one of the best games probably ever made. So it has that going for it.
I'm looking at games that came out that year that maybe could have made the lists.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first year of Sea of Thieves. Dragon Ball Fighters was this year. Minute was this year. I really liked Minute.
Minute was good.
Fortnite came out this year.
Yeah, that's true.
Smash Brothers Ultimate came out this year.
Yeah.
Hollow Knight.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey should have made this list.
You hadn't played it yet, though.
I hadn't played it yet.
No.
Yeah, I think that's basically it. Florence was a big one that year.
Yeah. Again, people talking about in the chat like about the ordering. We didn't have an official ordering here, but like Justin and I put like 150 hours into Black Ops 4 that year. We were very into Blackout that year.
Blackout.
Yeah, constantly. Like I said, like maybe it'd be fun one day for Justin and I to do like a one episode where we actually rank these games like in an actual order. But this is what we had for that. That takes us to 2019, which was like our first official like Monthly Reset game of the year thing. Also, I don't like Rockstar games very much, so that's why also it would not make it super high on the list. But anyway,
that's been some of our biggest fights.
Yes.
Is over Rockstar games, and I'm not even the biggest Rockstar fan.
Which honestly was the source of our biggest fight about a Rockstar game. That was our biggest fight about a Rockstar game. Was you saying it should be on the top 25 PlayStation games or whatever it was? And I was like, "Do you like it that much?" You're like, "No, I don't even really like it that much. It's just important." And I was like, "Okay, well, that disqualifies you." Number 10 was Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Number 9 was Outer Wilds. Number 8, Risk of Rain 2. Number 7, Luigi's Mansion 2. Number 6, Death Stranding. Number 5, Apex Legends. Number 4, Resident Evil 2 Remake. Number 3, Control. Number 2, Slay the Spire. And number 1, Remnant from the Ashes.
Apex Legends should have won this year.
At least should have been higher than it is. But yes, it should have been number 1. That's the... And at the time, I was fighting. You were the one like knocking it down the list. You were the one who didn't want it any higher.
I don't remember this at all.
Yeah, I was like, it should be like, because I think it was my number 3 game on my personal list, or number 2 game on my personal list that year. So I was it was very like I was very, and you were kind of pushing for other stuff. So.
Well, I was pushing very hard for Slay the Spire, and that's Luigi's Mansion 3, not 2.
Oh, you're right. There we go.
Other games that didn't make the cut this year: Fire Emblem 3 Houses, Pokemon Sword and Shield, Mortal Kombat 11, Legend of Zelda's Link's Awakening, Modern Warfare could have made this list.
Yeah, you and I had a lot of discussions about that, but that year I remember that. But that was before That was before what's it called came out. Warzone.
Yeah,
because Warzone is on our next year's list. So the 2020 list, originally Justin and I had talked about just doing a top 5, and then I think mid podcast we were like, let's just do a top 10. So our 10 games of 2020 were Destiny 2 Beyond Light was number 10, Ori and the Will of the Wisps number 9, Call of the Sea number 8, Haven number 7, The Last of Us Part 2 at number 6, Call of Duty Warzone at number 5, Phasmophobia at number 4, Astro's Playroom at number 3, Spider-Man Miles Morales at 2, and Hades at number 1.
It's a good list.
It was a good list. Last year was weird.
The bottom of that list was weird.
Yeah,
like it's you could tell the pandemic had messed some things up there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play a lot of games last year, like a lot of new games last year. So my list was very like a different and weird, and so we had some weird stuff on there, like you said.
Notable games that did not make this list.
Mm-hmm.
Ghost of Tsushima.
It's a game that
we got yelled at for a lot.
Neither one of us played that game, so
I played it.
Well, we played some of it.
Didn't like it very much.
We might revisit that game at some point.
We might. Spiritfarer didn't make this list.
Yeah, I just didn't finish it. So
the Demon's Souls remake didn't make this list.
I hadn't finished that either at that point. Probably would have made my list if I had.
Astro's Play.
No, Astro's Playroom was number 3.
Make the list. Yeah.
Come on, Justin.
Valorant didn't make this list.
Oh no! What? Not Valorant.
Not Valorant. Half-Life Alyx didn't make this list because we didn't get to play it.
No, we didn't.
But that might change.
It might. I do have. I mean, I could play it. I have my Oculus Quest. I could play it.
Well, supposedly it's rumored to be coming to the VR 2.
Oh, okay.
PSVR 2.
Okay.
That was it. I mean, there wasn't 2020 was not a great year for video games.
So it did have one of the all-timers in it.
It really did.
Hades
we should do a top 10 of all the top 10s.
Like, you mean take all these games, put them in a pool, and make a top 10 out of them?
Yeah.
We should do that. That'd be fun. Do that sometime next year. Once we have our 2021 list, we can do it.
I agree.
Let me turn this off. So yeah, that's Game of the Year's past. And we got a new Game of the Year coming up. Mark, so you said Valorant, and Mark appeared. Yeah, I know, Mark. It's the window capture used with this software. I don't know why it does that weird mouse cursor thing at the bottom. Yeah, so yeah, we got 2021 coming up real soon. We got a bunch of categories. I'm excited to do some of them, especially I'm excited for best music, Justin, so we can play a bunch of music on the podcast.
I love playing music on podcasts.
I know.
In all the years we did Talking Games, we never actually got the music to come through on the podcast.
I know.
Only we would be hearing it. So This year, people will be able to hear the music that we're ranting and raving about.
Yes. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, so we got 2021 Game of the Year coming up. But like Justin said, we've been playing through a bunch of games. Some of them, a few of them, two of them at least, we shared during this time. We did whole podcasts via text message for about 2 weeks, basically, about the games that we were playing. So, Justin, why don't you start out? What game do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about Unsighted.
Okay, yes, Unsighted.
So, around this time of year, Bobby and I will start combing through the big video game sites' Game of the Year lists, especially Polygon's, because Polygon does the top 50. And it's like, which of these games have we just missed and overlooked? Because, look, it happens. Mm-hmm. As close as we pay attention to video games, I will see a name of video game pop up when it releases, and then you kind of just lose the thread on it if it's not something that you're super interested in. And Unsighted was one of those games. Unsighted is an isometric, old pixel art Zelda-like, where you're a robot, and at some point in the future, robots gain sentience due to some alien rock that lands on the planet. And that resource, due to humans, is running out. So it's a Zelda-like. You need to go in and out of dungeons, fight bosses, get different upgrades to get to the end of the game. What's interesting about Unsighted is that every character in the game, yourself included, has a clock over their head that is constantly ticking down until you lose the ability to think for yourself and become unsighted. So the game is really at odds with itself because it wants you to explore your surroundings to find different items, different upgrades. But every second you spend doing that is a second closer your shopkeeper comes to dying.
Right.
And every second your blacksmith comes to dying. Every second your fairy guide comes to dying. Yeah. And the really amazing part about Unsighted is you cannot save everybody. You can pick and choose who you save, but as far as I'm aware, there is not a way to possibly save everybody. So you really have to start picking and choosing, like, these are the characters that are important to me. But the game will constantly let you know that your shopkeeper is now 16 hours away from dying. And you have to be like, I have items in my inventory that will extend their life, but I have too many lives to extend, and I cannot succeed in my quest without these other people. So I'm sorry, shopkeeper. It's time for you to go.
Yeah.
It is. You messaged me when you were playing it. So I started playing this game, and I told Bobby, like, this game is really good, and it's stressful, and you need to play it. It wasn't a game that was like one of the games that were on our, okay, we have to finish this up and play this list.
Yeah, Justin really screwed me up with that one. I had a very dedicated list that I was going to deal with.
And I got in the way of that. But holy crap, this game was, I think it's really special. Just because, a lot of video games put you in this end world scenario, right? Like, oh man, there's this like big cataclysm that's going to happen, but like 100%, like, explore everything, go collect, 6 eggs from all over the map and bring them back to this one shopkeeper so you can get a discount here. There's no urgency to the things that you're doing. And this game provides an urgency that other games just are lacking. And for the balls of that, for like just the bravado of, hey man, your fairy guide that will lead you to places can die if you are not paying attention. You really have to stay on top of your game and play this. I think that it's awesome. And so when Bobby was playing it, I had beaten it, and then Bobby started playing it, and he said to me in a message, he's like, I can't tell if I really like this game or if I hate it. And I think that's a really apt way to describe even my playing of the game. Like, as much as I was enjoying it, I felt a panic in my chest about it, where it was like, I have about 100 hours left to live. And now, like, it seems like a lot of time, but really it's not. The time in that game moves very quickly.
Yeah, you go through a day, like, pretty quickly. If you get caught in a dungeon or something, like, it goes by pretty fast. So, like,
there were times where it's like, there is this material in the world that you can grab. It's called, like, Ultima or something like that. And that's like meteor dust is what comes out of that. Yeah. And that's what you use to extend the clock on everybody. And so, like, at a certain point, the game will start pinging, like, those locations to you. Like, yeah, there's some over here. Is there a way for me to get this right now, though? That's the question. Is it a puzzle that I need to solve, or do I just not have the item that I need right now to do this? And it's like, well, I could sit around and try and figure it out for 15 minutes, but that literally brings one of my characters closer to 15 minutes closer to death. And maybe I should just not do this and go into this dungeon and try and beat this dungeon. So it's really good. I've never played anything quite like this. And it's easy to say that about video games. There's always something kind of new. But I will say the actual video game itself it's a good Zelda. It's a really good Zelda-like. But the sense of panic and urgency and despair that you feel is not like anything else I've ever played.
So, I mean, we'll talk more. We'll definitely talk more about this when we do it in the game of the year and get really, I think, more in depth about, like, how it ranks above other games and stuff like that. But I just want, for me, my main problem with the game was honestly that I agree that on paper, I think those systems sound really rad. And I think that I think there's definitely a place for a game that does those things and does those things well. I think at times, I think the gameplay design of the game and that ticking clock that you are talking about don't feel like they were developed in Congress. Like it doesn't feel like, just like you're talking about, right? Like, okay, they kind of tell you that if you get this meteor dust, you can extend people's lives, right? Okay, let me go see if I can find this meteor dust. But there's no clear indication whether or not, like, it doesn't communicate whether or not you can traverse certain things or get certain puzzles done with the gear you have in a very obvious way. You know, it doesn't have obvious, like, even like visual markers a lot of the time to, okay, this is just fruitless right now because I'm not able to jump this far, or I'm gonna get some sort of hook shot or a boomerang. I'm just using Zelda, like, you know, like terminology for this because I don't want to get too much into what you actually get in the game. And so, like, so because it doesn't have that, I feel like it wants me to explore and poke at it. Like, it wants me to poke at it to see what I can do, but it's also penalizing me for poking at it at the same time. So I feel like, and that's what I mean by sometimes I feel like the two halves of the game kind of don't mesh together. Like, it feels to me like which it is a first attempt at doing something like this. And I think there is a place for it and a chance for whatever they do next to be like a full realization of what this idea is. But for me, you know, it doesn't quite get there in this because of those reasons. Like, and it's also things like, I think, like, you know, it has a time penalty and a currency penalty for when you die in the game, and the game is not easy. The game is not an easy game, and to give you a time and a currency penalty, as well as, you know, having sort of like a Souls-like bonfire system where you're kind of respawning at like a certain location within the place you're in or wherever you last were, which then takes time again to go forward. I just felt like the penalties they were stacking up were a little bit too harsh to then they also have like an exploratory element to the game. You know, it's the same reason why I don't really dig, like, let's say the world tendency system in Demon's Souls, or the thing where people get sick in Sekiro when you die. You know, like, it's like, yeah, like, this game is already punishing me in a certain way. To punish me again in a different way that's like hard to even understand is like, I think is just, you're kind of playing your hand too much. You know, you're not holding any of your cards back, which I think is making this experience, you know, a little less enjoyable, or even a little less interesting for me, because I'm so focused on the penalizing parts of it that I can't focus on the mechanics of the game in some instances.
Did you ever pick up the chip? Because this game does like transistor style chip upgrades where you have a certain amount of slots that
the chip that your wallet chip, the wallet chip.
Yeah, the wallet chip.
Yeah, I got the wallet chip.
Don't lose money on death.
Yeah, no, okay. Like, the chips, like, and this is the thing where these are nitpicks now, because, like, I don't think this breaks the game, but I feel like the amount that the chip upgrades cost gets a little out of hand. Like, at a certain point, it's like
it definitely does.
And again, that's what I'm talking about. Like, the thing's not like, do you want me to explore and find money to upgrade this stuff, or, like, you know, it's like, I don't know what you're trying to communicate to me as a gameplay designer.
You know, I almost wonder if, because there is an option where you can literally turn all that clock stuff off. Like, look, if that's too stressful for you, you could just turn it off. And it could be like any other video game where it's like, this is going to happen, but it's not really going to happen because you're the hero of the story and you can save everybody.
Right.
I wonder if they designed the game that way first and then added the clock stuff in later.
That's what I'm wondering.
It seems like it's just like such a central part of the game that I just don't know if that's the case.
Or I'm wondering if they just if they came up with the time idea and then just didn't quite know what the game part of it was going to be for a while. You know what I mean? Like, and they settle kind of on this like Zelda structure because it is a very Zelda, old school Zelda like game. You have dungeons that you go to, and you know you kind of have to do them. They kind of say like you can do these and you don't have to do these in this order if you don't want to, but you kind of do because you get upgrades throughout the game that sort of let you progress throughout like certain areas.
You can though, because there is an achievement for doing the first, like they do want you to go to certain ones first, but you can reach the others without them, because there is an achievement for doing the last one first and the first one last.
Okay, interesting. And there generally I think the pixel art in the game is good, but I think at times like what they mainly suffer from is sense of elevations.
Depth perception and elevations.
Because I was like, is this oh no, this is like on the same level as me, but it looks like it's above me, or this is above me, it looks like it's, you know, or this is, you know, whatever. So I thought that was a little bit of an issue sometimes too with the game. But there's times where they do thing where like there's a certain area where you can't progress in the dungeons, especially like, oh, you can't do this yet, you don't have the thing yet to do this, right? I wish it did that in other points of the game when you're like exploring is all I would say. I think and like you said, I like the idea of like the timer. I am like, oh cool, like I don't want to feel that's why I like Souls games. I don't necessarily need the power fantasy, you know, part of it. Like I like the idea of like can't save everybody. And I think the idea of everybody having a clock is cool, but I think it also kind of leads to like it kind of will let players make really bad decisions that they don't understand very early. You know what I mean? Like you could be giving like moon dust to some character that doesn't matter at all, and not even realize it until, you know, it's too late. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden you're kind of screwed over. So like I think like I like the idea of what it's doing. I just think it doesn't quite get there for me at times. And yeah, I think that's really what it is for me. I liked the vibe of the game and like kind of like the story of the game and it being actually pretty good. But
I will say one thing, and we haven't mentioned this at all. The music in that game does not fit the game whatsoever. Because I remember being in like one of the dungeons and it was just like this like kind of like jaunty little supermarket music that was going on. And I'm like, I am in this dungeon fighting for my life. This music does not match the situation at all. And it felt like it was like that in every area for such a cool, like looking game. And like, you know, regardless of whether or not you enjoyed it or whatever, like it's a neat game, but the music does not match that style.
Yeah. And I think the other thing I'll say is, I think the puzzle design and stuff in dungeons gets a little bit like samey and repetitive. It's a lot of like pushing blocks. Like that's kind of like most of what and they gussy it up in different ways, but mostly it's just you're gonna have to push blocks in certain places to unlock certain things. So
turn one switch turns like, you know, turning on one switch turns off something somewhere else. And so on and so forth.
Yeah. That's one other thing for me on that. You know, but yeah, I liked it, but it was one of those games where I feel like I wasn't all the way there on it, but I did see it through. I did finish it. So it is strong story wise. I say it does have strong like near Automata vibes. It's very strong, I think very influenced by the storyline in Nier. I would say this game is. There go Pixel Punk, I think is the name of the developer, or Punk Pixel. It's something like that, right?
Give me a second.
I think it's one of their first games, so I look forward to seeing what else they can do.
Pixel Punk.
Okay. All right. What do you want to talk? You want to talk about the Artful Escape next, Justin?
Oh, geez. Yeah, let's talk about the Artful Escape because we both played and beat that. I don't know what to say about this game. There are things about it that are really cool. I think you put it best. It's like 75 to 80% of a fantastic video game.
Yeah.
But in the same way, it's like 50% like one of the more forgettable things you could play this year.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it occupies like a 4 to 5 hour space in your mind. And when you're playing it, you're like, this is something.
Yeah.
there are some really neat things about this video game. And then when you're done with it, you're like, that was fun. Like, that was a really cool thing. Story-wise, you're the nephew of a folk singer, a very famous folk singer.
Like a Bob Dylan. I think he's supposed to be basically Bob
Yeah.
Dylan is basically what he's supposed to be.
And he's passed, and now, the town that you're in is putting on a concert in, kind of like for you to pick up his legacy, and you're feeling the weight on that. And like, you like folk music, but your real desire is to play like, basically like space opera rock or whatever.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, you're on a spaceship running through these environments, playing an air guitar made out of, imagination and crystals. Basically, it is a game where you run from left to right playing guitar. It has very light Guitar Hero mechanics that you cannot fail, but it is just a treat for the eyeballs. And I was thinking like, okay, this is like a neat thing. I'll see this through because it's so short. And then the Ruby Cola hits.
Ruby Cola's a good level.
And I think that the Ruby Cola is a really great level where I think my feelings on the game switched to a much more positive outlook, where the music just gets very, to me, like emotional and sweeping. And like, I did not expect that from the game. And from there, I think the game really starts to take off. It does nothing new, but the story and stuff all starts coming together. And it's neat. It's like a neat little experience that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. I think it in a way, even though I really like the game, in a way I'm disappointed because it is like on the surface like a Bobby ass game, It
really is.
And I just didn't feel like the story part of it like delivered in the way I wanted it to, as far as just like I didn't feel any like emotion like from like the payoff of the story. It's got a stellar voice cast. It's the Annapurna joint, so it's got Jason Schwartzman and Carl Weathers,
Mark Strong,
yeah,
Lena Headey or whatever.
Lena Headey, yeah.
It's just like, what?
Jason Schwartzman voices like this, like kind of like almost like brain in a jar that has a body, like kind of creature that's very very cool and very good. And I guess like there's just like you said, there's just like this Guitar Hero type of like rhythm game aspect to it that is very very light. You can't like you can't fail it. Like you can mess it up, but it'll just give you infinite chances to get it right as you go through. The main problem with it is just that the way they lay out the buttons in the interface, the way they show you the buttons on screen, is not in the same configuration that they appear on the controller. So it is very so you like my muscle memory was not able to like do it intuitively because I was like misreading like the position of the buttons at times.
That part was a bit annoying because sometimes the buttons that they're laying out are moving, and then when you start having to hit multiple buttons at a time, and there's no time limit, so you have all the time in the world to do this. I will say though, for this experience, it may come away with my character of the year and maybe my favorite piece of music from the year. Because what's the character's name?
I don't remember the character's name, but he's amazing.
Caligula, something with the C.
Yeah.
Callisto or something like that. This small character in that Ruby Cola level comes and he makes an impact.
He has a good joke, a couple good jokes. He's a couple of very good jokes. They do a couple good bits with him. The Ruby Cola level is great, and Meg says something in the chat which I kind of agree with, which is I think like the music overall is good and the music in the Ruby Cola level is great, but like I really liked the folk stuff like at the beginning, and like I wish there was more of it, to be honest with you. But it's a cool game. It's a very neat game. It's like 3 hours long. Like it's like nothing.
It's on Game Pass.
It's on Game Pass. It's totally fun. It looks great.
It's fantastic looking.
Yeah, my main criticism of it is just that like it's almost like either I wanted more or I wanted less. It's like it's like a weird place. Like I almost wish like in those sequences, like when you have to do the button combinations, that you could just like shred however you wanted to, and that would be the thing. Because if you can't fail it, what's the difference anyway? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But and I just wish I wish the ending, I'll call it a battle, I mean whatever, was more visually like arresting, because like there's like normal ass moments in the regular levels of the game that are more, I think, impressive looking than the ending like bit that you do. But overall, it's, like I said, cool game, very cool game. What do you want to talk about next, Justin?
I completed Solar Ash.
Oh yes, that's right.
I really liked a lot. So when the reviews for Solar Ash came out, people were saying like, it's kind of like, it's good, but you're kind of doing the same thing all the time, which is fine when the thing that you're doing kicks so much ass. So this is Heart Machine, who did Hyper Light Drifter, and you're a Void Runner whose team dives into a black hole to try and do something to keep their planet from entering this black hole. And so you are like kind of jumping around on these clouds and visiting parts of other fallen civilizations that have fallen into the black hole. And there, it's part, I'll say, like almost Jet Set Radio and Shadow of the Colossus mixed. So there is a visual style about this game that I really appreciate. The gameplay is relatively simple. What you're doing is you're going into these areas, and there'll be X amount of like kind of areas that you like, it's almost like the symbiote from Spider-Man. Like the symbiote is all over this place, and you need to complete traversal puzzles to clear off piece by piece. And then when you do all of them, this giant colossus comes out that you need to fight. And by fighting it, you are literally traversing it, doing it not like a puzzle, but I put a clip of it up on my Twitter where you just have to hit these markers while moving, and you have a limited amount of time to do so. So it's not like it's a normal puzzle, but I'll say it's a traversal puzzle because you really have to move fast. But it's just so visually amazing to watch you as a tiny person skate up this giant 50-story tall beast. And there are about 5 or 6 areas in the game, and then you get to the ending. It took me about 8 hours. It's just one of those experiences that's like it's a Justin Ask Justin game. It looks cool. It's pretty. It has really interesting music. The gameplay is fun. It never tires out. It never overstays its welcome. I enjoyed every moment I had in that game. I found all the collectibles, which are neat because the collectibles are things you want to find. You find in every one of these areas, there are 5 or 6 caches that you can find, which will explain what happened to your fellow Void Runners piece by piece. But every time you find one of these caches, you find a bit of their suit, and their suits all have different properties. So you're like, oh, cool, I found his helmet. All right, cool, I found the legs. And then when you find the last one, it's like, okay, now this suit does melee to recover health. All right, well, that's cool. Or it'll be like, you'll earn twice the currency to repair your shields. It was one of those games I went into, and it was just like, I want to play this because it looks nice. And I came out of it being like, I almost wish it was a little bit longer because I enjoyed the experience so much.
Okay.
So yeah, Solar Ash was really, really cool. It's, I think, a little bit pricey. It's like $40 on PSN. I probably would wait if that doesn't sound immediately interesting to you, then wait for a sale. But it was one of those ones where I played it and I could not get enough of it. I beat it in like 3 days.
I will not be playing that before our game of the year, Justin. I'm sorry.
No, I know. That's okay.
So what else you got?
I due to your good graces, played through all of Life is Strange: True Colors.
Megs, are you still here?
Megs and I have had a little bit of discussions about this
I bet
game.
you have.
I will say, between Life is Strange: True Colors and the Artful Escape, it has been a year apparently for really pretty looking locations in Colorado.
Oh yeah, that's true. I forgot. Yeah, they are both in Colorado. Yeah.
So Life is Strange: True Colors was on my top 10 list. It was literally kicking down the door to my top 10 list until the final chapter, where that game ends in maybe the most disappointing way I think I've ever seen a video game end.
I mean, that's harsh, Justin.
It's like a
20-minute scene Like everything else in that chapter is not bad at all. Like I think all the flashback stuff in that chapter is really good.
The way that the conflict comes to an end.
Yes.
I'm not going to spoil it here. We'll talk more in depth about this in Game of the Year.
Yeah.
I thought, like, say the game is 5 chapters long. It's 5 chapters, right?
I think so.
5 chapters. The first 4 chapters were so strong. I was like, man, I did not expect to like this anywhere near this. I thought for sure it was ending up in my top 10. The character of Alex Chen is great. Like one of the best characters I've played in a long time. I loved all the surrounding characters. I love that town. Like I want to move to Colorado. I don't know why they have this amazing apartment outside of a bar. This apartment that they live in, it's got to be worth $45 million. I could not believe
the bar owner lets them use it, Justin.
I don't know, pick up a shift every now and again, and we would call it even.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you could sell this joint for billions of dollars.
Okay,
sure. Yeah, look, like the story is really good, and it's not like the journey there doesn't negate the ending. Like the bad ending doesn't negate the journey there. But when we get into spoilers, I'll talk about it. Like I just did not like the way this particular ending wraps up. I like the way the game actually ends is completely up to the choices that you make.
Yeah.
But that like half hour before the actual ending, something happens that really left like a sour taste in my mouth. Up until that point, top 10 game of the year. So we'll be seeing where we have conversations about this.
Yeah.
But again, it was one of those things where it was just like, shit, I can't stop playing this. It's 3:00 in the morning and I just cannot stop.
It's real good. Like I said, Alex is great. Music in that game is great. Like both like the original stuff and the like known like soundtrack that you know the popular music they bring into it. I mean, they've always been really good at the music choices for those games, but it's really, really good. And sorry, go ahead.
I'll say like amazing mocap work, or even just like even design. I mean, Alex Chen is a very beautiful looking person in this video game. Like one of probably the like more, this is like kind of weird to say, but I like definitely like one of the more attractive people I've ever seen in a video game. But like everybody is really good looking in that video game. Like they just the way that they emote, the way that like even like Jed, the bartender, like emotes when he's speaking, like you know what they're feeling, and like that to me that's still like a very impressive thing.
It is very impressive.
You could tell what this pixelated person is thinking and feeling by the way the pixels are moving on the screen. That's impressive.
Yeah, and they did like they did a very good thing, which is they revamped the engine for this game, that engine they've been using for the last couple of years for these Life is Strange games, and it really improved it, especially while not losing the style of because it still looks like a Life is Strange game, just with like way better faces, in it, which is really important. I mean, I agree with you. What I think I should say, because I have not played through all of Life is Strange 2, so I can't like say this differently. But of the Life is Strange stuff I've played, I think it's probably the best Life is Strange game, like just overall. But I still think, like you mentioned, the story in the first one is able to wrap itself up and pay itself off so much more satisfyingly than this one does. But I think everything leading up to it is great. And there's the one chapter, Max just mentioned, actually, I wasn't even looking, the LARP chapter of the thing, which is just great and ends in such a cool way.
It does.
The stuff they bring into it is really, really neat.
I would say that the end of that LARP thing will probably end up on one of our categories.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, 100%. And just some really nice, like I think what could have been sort of like extremely hokey and extremely cheesy, like sort of like her power set, they end up visualizing, I think, in a really kind of neat way. And especially I think when they have that one like sequence where she's feeling like joy or whatever, or like for the first time, like it's really powerful. It ends up being a very powerful moment, and I think that's very cool.
I mean, and I could speak to that because one of the reasons I was like not really interested in playing this game is like, I don't know, an empath or it's just like does not seem like a really interesting video game thing to me. And they make it work.
Yeah.
That joy scene, and there are other later scenes. There is one scene later in the game where I felt what the characters are feeling, and it's just like, oh man, I know what this feels like. And during Game of the Year, we'll get into it.
Yeah.
But it was like a really interesting thing to see, and I was like surprised that they went there. So
absolutely.
Good. Like even though I was left with a sour taste in my mouth by the ending, I still really did enjoy the game overall.
Yeah, and they like you're mentioning, they deal with complex emotional stuff that doesn't usually get broached. Like ideas of like people being angry for reasons that maybe don't seem just, and being angry at yourself for being angry, and stuff like that. And like there's a scene, I think it might be that the sculpting scene. Is that the scene you're talking about? Yeah. I'm not gonna go into what it is, obviously, because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But like that scene, you have to make it, like in Life is Strange games, you have to make choices. Like there are certain choices that are like the big choices you have to make, right? Every chapter has, I think, 2 like really big choices you have to make. And that moment I had to sit there and just be like, what would I do? What do I think the character would do? Like, and I like weighed like moral implications of what this thing would do, and that's just not something you said that happens in video games very often. So I thought that was very interesting. And it's nice because like, now like, Don't Nod has kind of walked away from Life is Strange at this point. They kind of they don't want to make the games anymore, but Square Enix is going to keep making them with this Deck 9 studio, and they did a great job with this one. For the most part, they didn't land the initially the one of the big story things, but other than that, I think it's great. So interesting to see what they do going forward. I'll say. What else, Justin? I know there's more.
Chicory.
Do we want to spend a lot of time on Chicory?
So I'm just gonna say quickly, we'll talk more about it later. It's 3 to 4 hours too long. And it takes too long to ramp up to when it gets good.
Mm-hmm.
When it gets good, it gets very good.
Mm-hmm.
There are some amazing things about Chicory. I'm like working through my feelings about the game because it just like, again, it just takes too long to get going, and it lasts maybe like 3 hours too long. But that middle area is extremely, extremely good. Amazing music, amazing visuals, great characters, deals with some heavy shit. So yeah, we'll get more into depth about that. Bobby, you have not played Chicory yet?
I played the first couple. There's like 2 hours of it, and it's felt like 6. Like playing the first 2, So
they really messed up with the what's the word I'm looking for here? Like the path or the like
pacing?
The pacing is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Yes. The pacing of this game is all messed up. They needed to kind of like give you something early to be like, okay, the coloring thing is neat. Like I'm coloring in this world. That's awesome. But there needs to be another immediate hook, and it doesn't come for like until you beat the first boss.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say, if you're interested in Chicory, give it until after the first boss. And if you are not grabbed by then, it's not going to grab you.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else after that will grab you. But once you actually get an ability to do something with the paintbrush more than paint the world, then the game starts opening up some.
Okay.
But just mainline until then. Don't spend too much time paint. I would say I wouldn't even engage with the painting that much until they ask you to do it. Just get moving until you hit that first boss, and from there, you'll probably enjoy more of the actual painting later.
Gotcha. Because every time I walk into a screen and it's all white, I have like a compulsion to start filling it in.
Yeah. So what I ended up doing, and this might be helpful to other people. Eventually, like the game will let you, and I mean this isn't much of a spoiler, but like there are multiple levels to things, and you can't access certain areas without certain abilities, and you beat bosses to get those abilities. So what I would do is sometimes I would just come in and I would color only the places that I could walk. So I would know later when I was looking at the overmap, it's like, there's a big white area right here. I haven't been here yet. And I was able to go back and get stuff. Or I would go back to that area with an ability and then be able to get up there. And then I would color it in like, okay, cool. I've been here now. But really I would just get to that first boss as fast as possible.
Yeah. Okay. Next, Justin. We'll close out with my last game. You played both. Had you played Overboard and Emily is Away 3 last time we podcasted?
No. I beat both of those. Overboard was cool. I really liked it. We'll talk more about that story and stuff on Game of the Year.
Yeah.
And Emily is Away 3 is a slap in the face to Emily is Away 2. I enjoyed it until I hated it, and we'll also
the reason why Justin hates it is so ridiculous. The reason why he hates it is such like capital G gamer reason to not like it. It's just the most. It's just the most capital G gamer reason not to like it. Justin didn't like that he couldn't triumph over the game or whatever in his first playthrough.
Okay, fine. We're going to get into this right now very quickly. Slight, you know what? Spoilers for Emily's
I mean, it's not really a spoiler. There are multiple endings. I'm not going to say what happened. There are multiple endings.
There's really not, though. So, no matter what you do in Emily's Away 3, you're going to get the bad ending. You're going to get the bad ending, or you're going to get the worst. You're going to get the very bad ending or the bad ending.
Yeah.
There is nothing you could do about it.
Yeah.
So none of my choices really mattered. Nothing in that game matters because no matter what, I'm not getting a good ending. If you want to get a good ending, after there are two in all these games, there are basically two people that you could romance, right? If you get the bad ending with one, you can now get the good ending with the other. And to get the good ending with the person that you originally tried to romance, then you have to beat the game with the other person. So to see the good ending on the person that I wanted to romance, I would have to beat the game with a different character. And then I could go back and replay the game again.
Right, but the thing I was trying to say to you in text message was like, it isn't a game about like min-maxing to like your it wants to tell you a story. Like just like Life is Strange wants to tell you a story, just like all of these games wants to tell you a story. And you're making choices, you're interacting with characters, yes, but like that is your own personal experience with what you're doing and how you're interpreting it. And then, but it still wants to deliver you it's telling you a story. The story isn't up to you. It wants to tell you a story. And at no point in the game does it say like all of your choices are going to matter deeply and how this thing is going to end up. Like
Emily is Away 2 though those choices did matter because when I played through it, I got the ending that I was really happy with. Like the choices I made mattered, and when I finished that game, I was like, "That was a really enjoyable experience."
Yeah, they're different games. Like it wants to do different things.
I understand that they're different games.
You know,
but like in Life is Strange, like they're telling me a story, but I can affect the story.
Yes, but no matter what you do, the ending is going to be the ending. Like the plot points of the ending are going to be the same, right?
Yes. So Grun is saying that they're confused. So basically, in this game, there are two choices that you can make.
You should probably say what Emily Away is. Basically, we didn't even say what it was.
You are playing. Emily is Away is a nostalgia trip. Emily Away 2 was centered around AI, like AOL and AIM messaging people.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a callback to when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Even though it was the very end of it, like I had probably already grown out of using it at that point, but like I could go back and I could hear the connection music, and you're having chat messages with people in a window.
Yeah. The game is basically a narrative adventure game that exists all within like retro computer interfaces. So Emily Away 2 is like a mix of like AIM and like MySpace or something like that, and then this is like more like a Facebook type of situation and Facebook Messenger and stuff like that. Go ahead.
So you have two choices to romance people. And your choices will play out. The game will play out differently. Like the conversations will play out differently depending on who you pick.
Yeah.
So in Emily's Way 2, you could have these conversations, and because of the choices that you make, there is like a good ending, a bad ending, a so-so ending, and so forth. But you cannot get the canon good endings in Emily's Away 3 on your first playthrough. You have to get a bad ending. And then from there, if you want to see the good ending, you have to romance the other person, play through the game again, and then that will unlock the ability to have the good ending with the other character. So you basically need to beat the game 3 times to see the good ending for the person that you want to.
It's like Nier Automata, you know what I'm saying? No, I'm just...
I mean, if it was Nier, we'd have to get 27 endings, and they'd all be worth it.
What I'll say is that I've seen both the endings, right? I didn't play through both of them, but like I watched my wife play because she used my save, so she got the good ending with the character she wanted because it was the opposite character I was romancing, and I didn't even realize why at the time. I've seen both of them. The ending, I think the quote unquote bad ending is way more interesting and fulfilling than the good ending is. Like,
see, unlike you, I like good feelings in my life. I like to feel happy, and
yeah, but it's more true, Justin. It's devastating, just like all those relationships.
Listen, I have enough devastation in my life as it is. I'm playing sad.
I guess you did meet your wife when you were a teenager, so I guess it's not as relatable to you as it is to me. But like, yes. It's like the moments where like that stuff goes bad and it starts going bad and like it just spirals. It just keeps spiraling. No matter what you do, you're saying the wrong thing. Was so relatable to me that like it was very fulfilling because I was like, this, I feel like I'm sharing an experience. Someone else had the same experience I did and they're kind of like communicating it. I guess this is how I felt about it. So it's very, very high on my personal list. I don't expect it to be high when we go into like our game of the year list, or I don't know if I'll make that. I'm gonna finally get Emily as away game on the top 10, on the top 10. I've failed 2 other times, so
I mean we'll talk more about this in the weeks upcoming. And I think we both tweeted something to this effect.
Yeah,
it's the hardest top 10 list I've ever had to make.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. Like my 1 through 3 or 4 is I know what it's gonna be, but like but like 5 to 10, there's like 15 games and for my 5 to 10 slots that like I'm constantly like shuffling around in my head.
I'll say like games 6 through 17 are basically all the same game.
Yeah,
they're all like, I think I tweeted something along the lines of like they're all like varying forms of fuck yeah video games.
Yeah.
So I have no idea. I like me and Bobby have had this conversation. It was like, you really need to remember the stuff that you played in the beginning of the year and not have that recency bias.
Yeah.
Which is hard because I just played through some games that I really, really loved. And it's like, okay, I also really loved these other games earlier in the year. Someone has to die. Multiple people have to die to make this list. And in all the years we've been doing this, going back all the way, let's say just 2015 when we really started doing top 10 lists, I've never had a harder time making a list.
No, me either. Even in those great, like that year, that 2016, 2017, as great years as they were, I had like concrete they were so good that I was like, these are my 10, you know, and then it's been really difficult this year. It's the exact opposite of last year where I was like, I don't know, I can make 5, and then like 6 through 10, that's gonna be, I don't know, these that wouldn't be on any list any other year, but like, you know, so you want to close this out with Resident Evil 8 Village?
Yeah, let's do a little bit on that.
Yeah, so I finally finished Resident Evil 8 Village. I played it like a episodic downloadable game where I basically played like a chapter every few months, but I played like the vampire lady level like way back, like probably like a couple weeks after it came out, and then a couple months ago finally I played that dollhouse level, and then this past weekend I played through the last like 3 like major areas levels, and then the like finished it off, the finale. And I've been thinking a lot this like the past couple days about like what I was going to say tonight about it, and also like where it fits sort of in my head with like Resident Evil games and stuff like that. And I really, really like it. I think it is definitely in the top half of Resident Evil games. I like probably 7 and 2 remake better than this one. There might be others, but like those 2 really are the ones that I definitely think about. Like those are the 2 that I like the most. And then maybe it's this one. And let's just say for a series that's 20 plus years old, for my favorite 3 installments to basically almost be the last 3 installments that came out, very good time to be a Resident Evil fan right now.
Noted long-term Resident Evil fan Justin Townson agrees.
And like at the very end of this, we'll get into some light spoilers. I don't want to spoil anything right now in case people, you know, kind of last thing we'll do is talk a little bit spoilers about it. But I want you to ask me some questions, Justin, about it, because I know you've been waiting to talk to me about the game.
I mean, I can't really do that without spoilers. You know what? I'll say, first of all, I did not think you were going to like this video game.
Really?
I didn't. I thought that you would be like, it's too far outside of the box. I really thought that you were going to lament it not being more like 7, because it is basically an action game.
Yes, it is,
with very light horror elements to it, which is why I like it so much. But what was your favorite area?
So I think the best area of the game is that first area, like the vampire lady castle. It feels the most like a Resident Evil game at that point. It's kind of a nice space to sort of exist in. But I think my favorite section is the dollhouse section.
Oh god, the dollhouse.
Because it's so fucking scary, and it comes out of nowhere, because the rest of the game is not even close to being that scary. And that section is so fucking scary. Like, it's one of the scariest things that's ever been in a Resident Evil game, is that section of the game.
Yeah, that was maybe one of the more upsetting things I've ever done in a video game.
Yeah.
Like, if we were doing that for Monster Closet, I would have not been that pleased, because I felt very hot and uncomfortable in that. I was like, I want to hide. I want to hide. I want to hide. I want to hide. I'm just really happy that you enjoyed it, because I was wondering if we were going to have a contentious conversation about this game. Other questions. You know, I can't really get into it without talking about spoilers.
Okay. I'll tell you the things I didn't like, but things that I liked less than other Resident Evil games itself.
What was something maybe that you wish that the game did a little bit better?
So I wish that some of the areas were more interesting or dynamic or thought out. Like, I think, like, as scary as the dollhouse is, and it lasted as long as it needed to, but the dollhouse and that, like, underwater, that, like, water area are both, like, super short. Like, they're very, very short compared to the vampire lady's castle and what's his name's factory at the end.
Heisenberg.
Heisenberg's factory at the end. And even Heisenberg's factory, which I think has a lot of, like, it has, like, some of that classic, like, okay, you got this, now you got to go back here and do this and loop around. None of them, other than that opening castle, were very memorable, interesting spaces to inhabit. And that's one of the things that only reason it's lower than some of the other Resident Evil games is because, like, 2 and 7 have very memorable places that you're inhabiting, right? That you get to know and that you kind of, like, learn, and I like that about those games. So I didn't love that. Would I like less action in my Resident Evil game? Yes, but I think the action was relatively good in this game. Like, it was a perfectly serviceable first person action game. And the fact that you can just, like, buy shit from the vendor dude, like, made it, you know, a lot smoother. Like, you know, I didn't feel like I was scrounging as much for stuff because of that very that very interesting vendor. So I didn't mind it so much, but yeah, like, the thing I didn't like was, like, I didn't, like, love the middle portions when you went back to the village and had to, like, just randomly shoot a bunch of werewolves. Like, that was the parts I didn't, like, love, you know?
Oh, I see. I liked that because I was clearing out the map methodically. So I did a lot of exploring in those areas. I was like, I need to figure out how I'm getting into this house, and I would stand there for 40 minutes and stare at it.
I liked, like, finding the treasure in the village and stuff like that. I mean, I liked when, like unique experiences would happen, right? Like, there's one point where you leave one area and you get attacked by, like, a bigger, like, wolf, and you have to, like, find a certain weapon in order to, like, take it down. Like, and then there's a moment where, like, kind of, like, if you go back to a certain place at a certain point, there's, like, a sort of like a mini boss, I guess you can call him, there, which I thought was interesting. I didn't mind that stuff, but I just, like, the sort of just, like, okay, I just want to get from, like, this altar to the next area. Like, I don't want to fight 15 werewolves, like, walking in between those two areas. Those are my only real gripes about it. I think without spoiling it right now, the ending is fucking bonkers, like bonkers crazy. And
Wolfenstein 2 levels. There are a few Wolfenstein 2 levels of what the fuck?
Yeah,
in this game.
For sure. And I think what I think it does, what I'll say about the action and sort of like the overall tone and like all over the placeness of the different bosses and areas that you go to, is that most of the time Resident Evil games are they start in a very certain way, right? Where they're very like, you know, you're undergunned and you're in this like spooky area and you got to learn the area and you got to like figure it out. And it's like a contemplative, like half puzzle, half horror, you know, game. And then at a certain point just turns into a fucking like balls out crazy action game with crazy beasts and like, and you're like, I feel like the first half was way better than the second half. It's like how you always feel about Resident Evil games. This one had that stuff all the way through it from beginning to end, so it didn't feel unbalanced like some other Resident Evil games feel. So I think that is to its credit about it. Yeah, I mean, overall,
it has good pace.
Yeah, it's good, definitely good pace.
It really does.
Yes, very good pace. And it's not a particularly long game. No Resident Evil game is that long, you know, really. But it is easier than I think most Resident Evil games are. And its levels are not as big and you're not doing as much backtracking. So I think it doesn't take as long as even some 7 or I don't think it's even as long as 7 or 2 remake was.
No, it wasn't.
You know, I think I don't think, here's what I'll say, because you're kind of one and done with them all the time with the bosses. I don't think they're as interesting as like the bosses in 7 were, you know, and like the family was. Like you got to know them way better and you had more investment in what was going on. But they were still cool, and it was cool to be like, you're fighting a vampire and you're fighting like Chucky and you're fighting like, you know, like a sea monster, and then you're fighting like Magneto, but whatever, basically. He's sort of like Dr. Frankenstein meets Magneto. Is that whole last level. You're fighting all that stuff. And I will say that the other thing too is like, I think the first half of the game, level wise, is more interesting than the second half of the game. But yeah, overall I really liked it. Like, I don't know yet where, again, awesome. it's in that like miasma of 5 through 10, 5 through 17, 18, 19 games. I don't know where it's going to be when I finally like sit down and make that list, but it will definitely be in the running at least for that.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Let's talk about some light spoilers. If anybody doesn't want to hear about any spoilers about Resident Evil, because I want to hear Justin's questions for me that were kind of spoilery. So, and I think after that, we're probably just going to close out the show after that's over. So, remember to like and subscribe and hit that alarm bell to get notified when we put stuff up. Look out for, speaking of Resident Evil, we got some remaining evils in the can that will be coming out pretty soon. So get ready for that.
Yep.
It's going to be fun. So spoilers for Resident Evil Village starting now. Justin, ask away.
What did you think about when she cut off his hands?
I mean, it's Ethan, you know, it's like, it's got to happen, right?
Yeah, I know, but like, did you just think it was totally normal that he just picked it up and reattached it? I
mean, I thought they were joking at that moment. You know what I mean? I thought it was just like, we know the joke about him in 7, how everything got like messed up, and like we're just gonna. I thought nothing of it at the time, and it wasn't until the ending that I was like, oh, okay, so they're actually like giving like a real story reason for this, and not just we're in on the joke.
Yeah, no, he takes a brutal amount of damage in that game to the point where I was just like, they're going. I thought they were going somewhere with it, and they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What else is that I want to ask you? I've had these questions in my head and they just keep flying in and out. Shoot, I'm drawing a blank.
So I will say,
literally all just came in. Go ahead.
They do the character switch to Chris.
Yes.
Near the end of the game. Do you want to ask a question about that, or did you?
Okay, go ahead. Give me your thoughts on that while I think about what I was going to ask.
I mean, it felt like the game was on easy mode at that point. Like Chris,
nice though,
and that like assault rifle. He was just mowing down werewolves. Like they had no chance against me. I thought it was interesting how they like. So when Resident Evil 7 happened and Chris shows up at the end, there was a lot of questions from like I think fandom about like, okay, like this is Chris, but like he's working for Umbrella and like he looks a little different and like he's acting way different. Is like Resident Evil 7 and now Village some sort of like alternate like Resident Evil timeline or something, and we're seeing like a different version of some of the characters that we know? And Chris, of course, at the beginning of the game seems like the worst person in the world. Like shoots Mia in the head and steals the baby, and like you think like, okay, it's like, you know, it's like that's it. It's like he's going to be a bad guy, and you learn that that's not the case. Like Mother Miranda was impersonating Mia and all this kind of stuff. But one of the things is when you're in that lab where he's like seeing like reading about the experiments that have gone on. One of the notes is from someone named Spencer, and the mansion in the first game, Resident Evil 1, is the Spencer Mansion. And in that, and he's like one of the like early like founders of like Umbrella and everything, and the reason why the T virus exists. And in that note, they tie together the mold, which has been in 7 and 8, which is in 7, and then I thought they weren't even doing an 8, and then at the end of 8 they were like, no, it has to do with the mold too in this one. To the T virus.
Insane.
Yeah, the T virus. So it links the two universes together in a very real way, kind of gives them an origin together, which is, you know, obviously kind of silly and weird, but I really enjoyed, because it was cool to see them sort of like link those two things together. And I thought that was cool.
The game, I mean, the game is just full of so many like like I said, like batshit insane moments. So when you find out that your child is now cut up into different jars,
oh yes,
I'm sure
that's true.
That was a very
yes,
you know, pleasing feeling inside of you.
Yeah, definitely. It was great. That was a great moment. I kept waiting for them to be like, no, it's not really his kid. It's going to be somebody else. But no, it was his kid. They just got put back together with the mold, because his kid is some sort of super being, because he's some sort of mold person. So
yeah,
and I didn't like other things. I didn't expect the mold to come back up from 7. I didn't ever expect to see what's her name, Evelyn, from the bad guy from 7 again. I certainly didn't expect Ethan to be some sort of like undead super being that like had somehow survived, but now like was gonna kind of have to sacrifice himself to like save his kid or whatever. I
mean, it does put all that other stuff into context though, because it's like constantly getting shredded, and you're like, how is this dude alive?
Yeah, totally.
Like, but I thought that was actually one of my favorite moments of the year, was just like finding out like, oh no, you actually died at the end of that. No, you died in the beginning. Of 7. Like the first hour of Resident Evil 7, your character dies, and it's just like this mold that is impersonating you.
Yeah. It was neat.
Game's wild.
It's a wild game. It's a wild game, and I definitely enjoyed it. You know, I think like I texted you, but I think like the Heisenberg like boss fight is pretty, because you're in like that mech. I think that's pretty cool, and it's like visually neat. Like when he like throws you up in the air and you have to like shoot him when you're coming down or whatever. I thought that was cool. My least favorite area was definitely the like the water area. Like it's just
not a strong area.
It's like it has like instant death mechanics, and it just is like it just isn't a lot of fun. Like it's not like that creature is not interesting to like, you're being kind of like hunted by that creature, but it's like it's just there's no like connection to it. Or whatever. So I didn't love that. But man, also, when that fucking baby shows up at the end of that doll level, oh boy.
Yeah. I don't want I mean, the less I think about it, the better. But yeah, that was one of the more terrifying things I've ever experienced in a video game.
It was very scary.
I don't like thinking about that sound.
No. Daddy, or whatever it says, like what it's chasing you.
That sloshing noise.
Yeah. You know, it's weird because it turns it into like an Outlast type of game at that point. Like you have no weapons, you can't fight back.
Even Outlast wasn't that terrifying.
No,
nothing about Outlast was scary. That scary to me. That was legitimately upsetting.
Yeah, it was very upsetting. Yeah, that's all I have to say about Resident Evil. We'll talk. Well, you know, when we get into like making our top 10s and stuff for Game of the Year, we'll get more into it. But I'm happy that I finished it, and I'm excited to talk about it for Game of the Year. And the ending. I guess like the next game you're going to play as the daughter. Like that's what it's like
18 years in the future. It seems like
that's what it seems like. She has like superpowers or some shit. It seems like So we'll see. Like what
Whatever.
happens. What
it
happens.
all works for me.
Yep, we'll see. I wonder if it's gonna be first person or it'll be third person. I'm very curious about that. We should be getting some sort of Resident Evil news soon. Like they're gonna announce that 4 remake at some point. I would guess. So. But yeah, that's gonna do it. I think for the show this week. We talked about a lot of video games, Justin.
We really did.
A lot of video games were played. There may be one more podcast in between this and Game of the Year. If not, that'll be the next thing we do. Please remember to like and subscribe. If you're watching the video right now and you haven't liked the video yet, please do so. Ring that bell to make sure you get notified whenever we go live or post a video. If you're listening to this in podcast form, misadventure.land is how you get to the YouTube if you want to see our faces on video. If you're listening to this in podcast form, please remember to rate and review. Rate and review the podcast. I think that's it, Justin. We have a big announcement coming soon. We would have made it already, but Justin's whole family had to get COVID, so we kind of had to like delay it. We had to wait it. We had to wait it out. So, but soon we'll announce that soon. But I think that's gonna do it for this week's show. Till next time, thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Bobby.
And thank you to everybody who's watching and listening. Until next time, be good to one another. Later.
These two great friends agree a lot, but when they don't, then the shit gets hot. Though there's C+ in their gameplay, their comment